sometimes the music really motivates you to get going and dancing. But we had no audio equipment, and so the pastor said, you know, what do we do when we don't have audio equipment, you know? We use our voices, and we still have to find within ourselves that motivation. So where does your motivation come from? So I'd just like to introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon, and thank you for your motivation, Mr. Patrick Tannock. Mr. Patrick Tannock is the Managing Director of Accel Group and a member of the Accel Leadership Council. He serves as the President of Accel Insurance Bermuda Limited. He's responsible for strategic direction, underwriting, probability, and leadership of the XLIE business lines. He's also president of the Accel Foundation, Accel Philanthropic Unit. Mr. Tannock has over 25 years of experience in the international insurance and reinsurance industry. Prior to joining Accel, he served as Executive Vice President of ACE Bermuda, as well as Chief Underwriting Officer and Director of the company's Specialist Directors and Officers, Subsidiary Corporate Officers, and Director Assurance Limited. He has also held executive brokerage positions with the Marsh & McLennan prior to joining ACE. Mr. Tannock is currently Vice Chairman of the Association of Bermuda's International Companies, ABIC, and a founding member of the Financial Intelligence Agency's board. Mr. Tannock has also served as a member of the Outstanding Directors Advisory Board, former co-chair of the Bermuda Plus, or Professional Liability Underwriting Society Conference, former member of the Bermuda Hospital Board, former member of the Bermuda Government's Board of Education, and former member of the Board of Directors to Butterfield Bank. Mr. Tannock holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, cum laude with a major in Insurance and Finance from the University of Hartford, and a certificate of participation in the Executive Management Program from the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University. In January 2011, he became the first Bermudian to be inducted into the Hall of Fame at the University of Harvard's Barney School of Business. He is a regular participant and speaker at professional and educational conferences. Mr. Tannock has been married to Chipita for 20 years, and they have two sons, Matari and Kumari. I'd just like to welcome to the stage at this time, Mr. Patrick Tannock.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Does anybody remember the first man that went to the moon? Does anybody remember the second man that went to the moon?
Buzz Aldrin.
Well, I feel a little bit like the second man that went to the moon after going after someone who's famous and also the ever-eloquent Reverend Tweed. But I'm going to do my best. Before I get started, I just want to say that I'm here in a personal capacity, and not in my capacity as President of Accel Bermuda. And the comments that I make today are my own comments, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Accel or the Accel group of companies. Let's get started. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm quite aware of the significance of this occasion, and I feel privileged and humbled that you've asked me to speak here today. I am fully aware that the bravery of the founding fathers of the Progressive Labor Party enabled people like me to pursue a successful career in Bermuda. And plus, when someone, a young person of the pedigree of a Tannock Ferguson asks you to speak, how could I say no? And even though the time and the venue kept changing, I was absolutely determined to be here. So here I am, with my wife, Chiquita, my youngest son, Kumari, my oldest son, Matari, unfortunately, he's away in school pursuing a degree in hospitality management at Johnson, Wales, but wherever I go, he's with me. And as I look in the audience, I see my parents, Maria and David Tannock, and I can't forget the mother-in-law, Violet Tucker. And as I look around, I see several of my closest friends and many colleagues from work. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate your support. Now, I've been asked here to speak about empowerment. But before I get started, it would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the courage and the commitment of the founding fathers of the Progressive Labor Party. Perhaps it would help if we reflect on the landscape of 1963, a time of great change and much turmoil. And I had a lot of credibility because I was only 2 years old then. In 1963, John F. Kennedy was President of the United States, a country torn by civil strife and race riots. Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. Nelson Mandela, a younger Nelson Mandela, was on trial for crimes against apartheid in South Africa. Jomo Kenyatta was sworn in as the first Prime Minister of a newly independent Kenya. Fidel Castro had been excommunicated by the Pope, and the U.S. had cut ties to Cuba. In 1963, the first push-button telephone was invented, but it'd still be 6 years before man would walk on the moon, and many years before the internet. In Bermuda, in 1963, the population base was about 42,000, and we had two separate but unequal societies, one black and one white. The schools were still racially segregated, and the 1930 Hotel Keepers Protection Act was alive and well, and this act gave hoteliers the right of refusal for people of color and Jews, and a refusal to leave the premises immediately would result in a fine of $2,880, 3 months imprisonment, or both. This was the Bermuda of 1963. And in the middle of all this, 7 ordinary men: a telephone operator, a mechanic, a building contractor, an immigration officer, a teacher, a lawyer, and a guest house operator did something extraordinary. The founding fathers of the Progressive Labor Party had the audacity to create a political party with a vision of equality for all Bermudians, both black and white. They gave the unempowered, the unheard, a voice, and for the first time ever, all Bermudians will be given the opportunity to participate in their own country. These men, in their own way, were the Nelson Mandelas and Martin Luther Kings of Bermuda. And this country owes these men a tremendous debt of gratitude. And I've been asked to speak about empowerment. And as I was preparing my remarks, I found myself reflecting on the founding fathers, how they empowered themselves to empower thousands of their fellow citizens. And I wondered, what would they think about today's world, where a Barack Obama can become president of the most powerful nation on the planet, but young Trayvon Martin can be shot and killed for wearing a hoodie? What would they think about the political infighting, the economic concerns, the breakdown of the family unit, an unacceptable amount of our young men in prison, declining respect for elders, the gangs, the poverty, the crime? How would they have handled the challenges of today's modern world where change is changing faster. Complexity is the norm, and an accelerated rate of innovation is impacting our lives in ways that we could have never imagined in our lifetime. We can only guess, but one thing is certain to me. This is clearly not the world of our founding fathers. We are living in what has been termed as the second machine age. The first one being the Industrial Revolution at the turn of the 20th century. And I want to talk about three key drivers that are materially impacting today's landscape, where the world is not just flat, but hyper-connected, and everyone is being asked to do more with less. Increased complexity, an exponential increase in the rate of change, and the speed of innovation. We are living in a period of unprecedented complexity. And you can define that complexity as the multiplicity of interactive elements, or the interdependence of those interactive elements, or the diversity of those interactive, interdependent elements. And systems that were once separate are now intertwined and interconnected, and knowing the starting conditions is no guarantee of future outcomes. There's just too many constantly changing interactive elements. Did anybody get that? I didn't think so, because it took me a long time as well, and I still don't know if I really got it. So, I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, there were floods of biblical proportions in Thailand. It rained for almost 3 months straight. And in Thailand, there were factories that were making a wide range of diverse and critical components for everything from smartphones to automobiles. These floods impacted, or these floods caused a delay in production and impacted supply chains for weeks. And suppliers scrambled to find alternative components to meet market demand. No one had anticipated the severity or the impact of these floods. And so, if you can reflect back to that period of time, if your repairman was telling you that he really couldn't get the parts, he was probably telling you the truth. And that goes for whether it's your fridge or whether it's your air conditioner. It really doesn't matter. But these floods really hit at home that the world was not just flat, but hyper-connected. And what happens there has implications here. The second thing I want to talk to you about in terms of the key driver is the rate of change. Those changes that we're aware of, and those changes that we haven't heard yet, but we know are coming. And you can measure change in terms of computing power, or contracting product cycles, or the speed with which emerging issues manifest themselves. But I'm going to break it down. Has anybody seen a really good movie from the 80s, or the late 80s, early 90s lately? I'm sure you guys have seen the movie, but anyway. Well, I'm going to paint a picture for you. You got the cool guy who's driving on the highway, roof down, probably got his girl on the side, and the phone rings. And this is 1980, early 90s. Phone rings, and of course you didn't have call waiting at that time, and you couldn't see it was calling. So if he's got his girl by the side, he's hoping that it's not somebody who's not supposed to be calling him at that time. And his girlfriend's probably saying, you better get that. So anyway, he picks up the phone, his cell phone. And when he whips out his cell phone is the size of a concrete block with an antenna that's about 3 feet long. But he's still cool, all right? So let's fast forward to today, and we have the BlackBerry, okay? This BlackBerry has more computing power than the first spaceship that took a man to the moon. Now you process that for a minute. But yet, it's about to go obsolete. The speed of change. It's affecting and impacting just about every single thing that we do. The third driver is the speed of innovation. There's a phrase that economists like to use, which is called creative destruction. And creative destruction can basically be defined as innovation constantly driving change, and new economic orders replacing existing economic orders. And just to give you an example, has anybody been to the video store lately? Come on, somebody's got to go to the video store. Well, if you've been there, you probably get served very quickly. There's two things. You probably get served very quickly. And number two is that there's hardly anybody at the video store because everybody's converting to Netflix or to Apple TV. This is just another example of what we call breakthrough innovation, the kind of innovation that would generate new unforeseen market opportunities, new products, new ways of servicing our clients, and new jobs. And whether we like it or not, this second machine age is already here. And the value and disruption that it will generate will affect and amaze us all. It's exciting, but no conversation about the future can ignore the human costs of progress or the unsettling question of whether or not we are adequately prepared. Bermuda is another world. In some quarters, that's our de facto national anthem. The tourists like it, and it's cool, it works sometimes. But in today's context, we need to evolve to become another world in terms of our innovation capabilities, in terms of our service and execution excellence. The fact of the matter is that Bermuda is not another world, and we are very much part of the global village. And the challenges that we're facing are not unique to Bermuda, but are being faced by communities all over the world. These are very challenging times, and Bermudians are hurting in ways that we probably never imagined in our lifetime. I know that in some quarters, the anxiety barometer is off the chart, and the needles of faith and hope are on life support. But I'm absolutely confident that we're going to get through this. It will look different when we get on the other side, but we will get through this. I believe in the resilience of the Bermudian people. I really do. Now, as I reflect on the issues, I found myself wondering, what would the Founding Fathers have done if they were alive today? How would they have advanced their vision of equality for all Bermudians? What would they have done to empower the communities to respond to these unprecedented challenges that we face? Well, I'm going to take a guess. Acknowledging the kind of men they were, I know they wouldn't have put their heads in the sand and hopefully that when they came up, everything was okay. I don't believe they would have waited for permission to act or to be told what to do. Let me tell you what I think they would have wanted us to do. I would like to believe that if the Founding Fathers were alive today, they would challenge us to become game changers, where individually and collectively we take ownership of our own destiny. I would like to believe that they would have wanted us to harness our collective intellectual and economic capital to make sure that we had a seat at the table when decisions of materiality were being made, both today and in the future. And I would like to believe that they would have embraced the opportunities that come from change. So, what will we do? Well, let's put it in perspective. There are some things that we don't have a lot of control over, such as what happens in Washington, D.C., and how it impacts one of the pillars of our economy, international business. I'm absolutely confident that our value proposition as a jurisdiction is extremely strong, and that we have got a demonstrated, tangible track record of stepping up to the plate when there are natural catastrophes or other issues or other perils that impact North America. We've paid over $35 billion in claims since the year 2000 for things such as September 11th, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Wilma, Rita, Katrina, you name it, the tornadoes in Joplin. So I think we're okay in that area. But there are things that are within our remit that we can and must do. I referred to a phrase earlier called creative destruction, where innovation is constantly driving change. and new economic orders quickly replace existing economic orders. In academia, there's usually two responses when you have a situation like that. One response is that you retool the existing legacy operations. And in this case, that would mean, or legacy industries. In our case, that would be international business and tourism. And I'm not going to talk too much about them. I think there's enough been said about them already. The one I would like to focus on is the second response. And the second response is that you create new entities to deal with the opportunities that come from change. Entrepreneurship. I believe in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is one of the engines of job creation. But if anybody here is an entrepreneur who's had a sustainable business model for several years, will tell aspiring entrepreneurs that no one is going to do business with you on a sustained basis because they went to your same church or because they grew up in your same neighborhood. You must provide value, and you must provide a differentiated experience. They're not going to do business just because you're a nice guy. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the community about privatization and mutualization. And it's not for me to really comment on that. But from my perspective, I believe that the conversation needs to evolve from privatization and mutualization to diversification of our revenue stream as a matter of real urgency. Either way, it's time for transformation. We must change. And the brilliant naturalist, Charles Darwin, I believe, put it best when he said, "It's not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." Nobody likes that word change sometimes. Now, it's not up to me to tell you what to do, but one thing I'm certain of is that we absolutely need a change in mindset. It's essential if we're going to respond to this new paradigm where skill sets, organizational, economic, and legislative policies are lagging behind technology. As a community, we need a change in mentality if we're going to compete in this modern technology-fueled economy. We must identify new ways to create and build wealth and ultimately economic power. We need to get away from platitudes where we blame everybody. The PLP, the OBA, the BIU, international business, and anybody else that comes conveniently to mind. We can start by taking personal responsibility for our own self and our own success. It's long overdue. Only we have the power to unlock our own potential. We must, with post-haste, make a serious effort to acquire the skill sets that will be relevant in this modern technology-fueled economy. And I would like to challenge every single person in this room to make a lifelong commitment to constantly updating your skill sets to make sure that they're relevant and current. Adaptability, flexibility, embracing the opportunities that come from change, being energized by change. It's the only way that we're going to stand any chance of competing and being relevant. We must be prepared. The train's left the station. Now, I'm not an expert on empowerment, but I do believe that a critical step to empowerment is to embark on a journey of self-awareness, belief in oneself, and a cultural awareness of our history. And I'm not talking about black power or white power. I'm talking about the power of knowledge. It can emancipate you. And the internet and technology will level the playing field in ways that we could have never imagined in our lifetime. And we must be ready, not to just get on the bus, but to drive the bus. Now, a word here for politicians, teachers, and those of us in leadership positions. I would like to banish to the depths of the incinerator at Times Bay all those people who subscribe to that school of thought, do as I say and not as I do. There is no room for that today. Our children, our constituents, and our colleagues will behave as they see us behave, not how we tell them to behave. It's time to walk the walk. Enough of the talk. Be authentic. We need to teach our children how to learn, how to be, how to treat others. They're looking at every single thing that we do. Even what you do in the dark, it comes out in the light. It happens every single time. A word here for parents and teachers. Don't be an aspiration thief. And I'll repeat that. Don't be an aspiration thief. Your job is to fuel their aspirations. Don't tell them what they cannot be. You need to tell them they can be anything they want to be with hard work, perseverance, and self-belief. When I was growing up, my mother and father, Marie and Davis Tannock, installed a strong sense of self-belief that we could be anything that we wanted to be. In fact, my father, Mom, can you just ask him to stand up for a second? Because he's one of these unknown soldiers that everybody refers to. My father, Davis T. Tannock. Yeah. My father, he actually ran for the party back in 1968. Lost by quite a number of votes, but never gave up. And he was the man who walked the walk and really showed us what perseverance was all about. And I got to tell you, this is not part of the script, but every single day of my life, I try to honor his legacy, because he is my hero. And I do, I try to honor his legacy by being the best that I can be in terms of, trying to live up to his legacy. But the bottom line is that I try to install his values in our sons, Matari and Kamari. And when we were growing up, my father never even allowed us to use the word can't in our house. It was forbidden. And I remember being a young boy, 7 years old, and my father came home with this book one time, and it had this caption, "I can't." And he basically, in the next page, had a picture of, "I can," where he had knocked off the T. Can't was not allowed in our house. Positive thinking. You can be anything that you want to be with hard work, perseverance, and self-belief. Now, I'm not a social scientist, and I certainly don't have all the answers. But I do have a strong conviction that empowerment starts with us, and that the founding fathers of the Progressive Labor Party would have wanted us to take control of our own destiny, to respond to the challenges and the opportunities of today's world. It's the only way forward. Bermuda has a great track record, a historical track record, of responding to the opportunities and the challenges that come from change. But I got to tell you that this is very different. This is not a prequel of some old movie. This is not a remake. No one has seen this movie before. This is absolutely unprecedented and will require an unprecedented response. And that means that we have to take our game up to another level. We have to provide value, and we have to stop confusing service with servitude. If I don't provide value in my role as president of Excel Bermuda, my clients will go somewhere else. Because our clients and our customers, whether they're tourists or whether they're business people, have more choices than they've ever had before. And we want them to choose us. This is not about kissing up. This is about economics, pure and simple. The world is not just flat. The world is hyper-connected. So we've got to provide value. There is no room for arrogance in today's world. You need to park it at the door. And that goes for employers and employees, for blue collar and for white collar, for internationals and for Bermudians. No one is immune. Let's park the arrogance at the door. There's an old saying, well, hey, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be, thank you. And since we're all in this together, I'd just like to say a word to those investors in Bermuda who have shown cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness and respect for Bermudian culture. We appreciate you. It's important and a key factor in our joint success. There is no room for the condescending behavior of our historical past. And while we're at it, we must be our brother's keeper. Everyone should have access, equal access to success. But the fact of the matter is that some of you will get there before others. And in some situations, the playing field is still not level. So for those of you who get there first, help others to get there. Mentor them. Provide guidance. The Bermuda of tomorrow succeeds if we all succeed. Now, even if you do all these things, work hard, there's still no guarantees. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Even the U.S. Constitution doesn't guarantee happiness. It only guarantees the pursuit of it. But we must persevere and continue to work hard. And I want to share with you my story. So I think my story is a story of perseverance, hard work, and being prepared. When I was a young man, a younger man, a much better looking man with a full head of hair, I had a vision. I had a vision of being one of the new generation of young Bermudians who diligently strive to see Bermuda established as a major financial center. So I went off to university and did relatively well and all that kind of good stuff. And I thought when I came back here, I would walk right into a job. Well, I came back here in 1980, and I couldn't find a job because there was a recession going on. And that recession was probably on a scale of 10, maybe a 7, whereas this recession was off the charts. So I took a job.